Discovery Weekly.
Welcome to Discovery Weekly, a show where we just try to learn as much as we possibly can by discovering new things every week. I am Zach.
I'm Kirk.
And I discovered something terrifying this week. And it's the terrifying things that radiation can do to you. And not normal radiation that you understand in general or like have to be around sometimes. Space radiation. It's one of the main things that NASA JPL has to take into account that we never really think about, because literally long-term radiation in space is so deadly because the atmosphere saves us from so much of the radiation that's just free flowing in space. And so everything on the space shuttle is like coated in things that are reflective so that radiation's not getting in, but still over time, radiation destroys every TV panel in there. And okay, here's where it gets really disturbing. There is radiation that goes through your head and hits your optic nerves and like makes your optic nerves fire. So people
I've heard
like
that.
see it like when it happens, you just like see flashes of light. And apparently this happened during the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as well. They described it as blind people saw flashes of light. And it's because the radiation literally goes through your head and hits your optic nerves and makes you see things. And so this is one of the main considerations for everything they're doing with space. First of all, quick aside, Perseverance made it, everybody.
Yes.
Perseverance is on Mars. I think they said
We're
it's
already
like
getting pictures.
Yeah,
Video.
There's pictures from Mars already coming back. It did it. It was an amazing thing. We're going to get tons of amazing footage coming from it. It's going to be great for a really long time.
Did you watch any of the live stream?
I did.
I didn't get to catch it
but
live,
I missed the actual the landing time because I was watching it before when they were like counting down to it.
Yeah, I watched the VOD because I was on the road when they did it.
Yeah, same. So they're thinking like 30 or 60 days they're going to do the first space flight on a foreign planet.
Yeah,
so that's going to be
drone?
Yeah, the little helicopter
that's
right now in the kangaroo pouch of Perseverance, and eventually it's just going to jump out and fly. But yeah, so that's super exciting, something to keep an eye out for. But reading all this reminded me of this story I heard about where there was a guy who got the weirdest, I guess it's technically radiation, but it's so over my head that it's just crazy, but I'll just tell you about it. His name is Anatoli Bugorski, and he is a Russian particle physicist, and he is famous because he got shot in the face by a high energy proton beam. So I don't think it's something you can see. I think it probably just looks like light. And there was a failure of a piece of equipment, and he accidentally leaned through the beam.
Ooh. And
he said that he saw a flash brighter than 1,000 suns, but didn't feel any pain. And it went through the back of his head. I think it went through his brain and then it went through his ear, and then it shot out of his nose. And they think that he was heavily irradiated. They only found this out after, and this is the really disturbing part. So slightly disturbing. Here's what's coming. So the entire left side of his face swelled up so that you could not recognize what he looked like.
Ooh.
And then it all started to peel to the point where you could see a hole that went straight through his face, through his head.
Nope.
And they thought for sure this guy was going to die. So the Russians took him to the hospital literally to monitor him dying because they're like, you cannot possibly survive this. Not only did he survive this, he survived. He completed his PhD. He continued working as a particle physicist. He had virtually no damage to his intellectual capacity. And all that would essentially, he would get more tired when working on some of these things. He would sometimes have there was, I think, occasional seizures, and then the left half of his face was completely paralyzed and he couldn't hear out of his left ear. But he got shot with radiation in the face, and it burned a hole through his head, and he was fine. He's still alive.
Kind of fine.
Yeah, no, he's still alive. This happened in 1978. He is now 78 years old. And I don't know, just all of this stuff. I was just like, okay, radiation freaks me out. I'm a little more scared about going to space now.
Did you ever watch the HBO series Chernobyl?
Mm-mm.
Oh God, it's so good, but it's very disturbing as well in the fact that they show people that are dying from radiation, and it's very disturbing the way that they articulate it. Which, I mean, I'm sure it's fairly accurate because it's crazy stuff and horrible stuff. So I was I was trying to find some discoveries, like podcast discoveries for the PDS. And I was listening to one of the shows that hopefully I'm going to be recommending soon, but I want to find the right episode. And they mentioned something that really got me thinking, because the episode I was listening to was after COVID. So it was during COVID, but like after COVID had already started. It wasn't like an old episode. And they were talking about essentially how there's literally a handful of rich people that could probably like fix this / fix world hunger, fix anything. And the people on the show are comedians. So they're like, yeah, it's kind of funny how like somebody has enough money to fix world hunger every single day. And they just wake up in the morning. They're like, nah, I'll do that later. And I was like, okay, let me look into this. Cause I mean,
how like possible is that actually?
Yeah. So I was like, this thought experiment was going off in my head while I was listening to these comedians just joke around. And, I found a few different articles that I kind of want to reference a few different articles. The first one is about like how much it would cost to literally eradicate world hunger. I found an article from The Guardian that talks about ending world hunger by 2030 would cost $330 billion. So this is what they did it with the German government, along with basically a branch of the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. And they said research groups compiled data from 23 countries and found international donors would need to add another $14 billion a year to their spending on food security and nutrition over the next 10 years, which is more than twice their current contribution. And this article's it's fairly short, but they talk about, you know, how much would be needed to be able to end world hunger. And I was like, okay, well, that's a lot of money. Of course, it's a lot of money, but is there people that have enough money to be able to actually put a dent in that? And that's in 10 years almost. And so I was looking at the richest people. So you got Elon Musk, who apparently just overtook Bezos, which is kind of crazy. You know, you'd think Bezos would be a little bit, but they're close enough. They're both billionaires.
Big billions, multiple billions.
Yeah. So Elon Musk is at currently, this is their net worth of 197 billion. And right now he's the richest man in the world, followed closely behind by Jeff Bezos, who's 182 billion. So basically just those two guys themselves could end world hunger. Like two people, just two could end world hunger with their net worth, not including Bill Gates. And I thought that was funny because another thing I want to reference a little bit later is about like billionaires' impact on the world negatively. Because I hadn't thought about this either, but billionaires have a much higher carbon footprint than a regular person ever would even imagine having.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of funny because this article from The Guardian was partially done by Bill Gates, who is one of the biggest. He's fairly okay compared to some of the other 10 richest people in the world, but he's still like,
he's very
multiples more of a carbon footprint than us. But he's the third with 132 billion. So these three people together,
they'd have change left over.
Yeah, exactly. You get the first five go together and then they're still billionaires.
Yes.
They can literally get rid of world hunger and still be, in the 3 comma club.
we just need to hop on the phone with them. We just need to let them know how simple it would be.
It's just kind of it started as a joke in this podcast, and then it kind of hit me in my brain. I'm like, it is kind of crazy because, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be rich people in the world. I don't, people earn what they earn and all that stuff, but there is a point in which I feel like there's a point in which wealth isn't even useful anymore. You can't even spend it, even if you tried to spend that much money on yourself, because there's not enough things that you could buy.
Yeah, no, there's not.
So it's I don't know.
That's like
it's just
buy country's money.
Yeah, literally. But the thing I wanted to end on, which I guess is a little bit of a downer, but it's that other concept of, are billionaires bad for the environment? So I found this Popular Science. I love Popular Science. They have some really good articles, and there's this article that they talk about, and they just really break down the carbon footprint of these billionaires. And it says Tesla's Elon Musk and Amazon's Jeff Bezos have been vying for the world's richest person ranking all year after the former's wealth soared a staggering 160 billion in 2020, putting him briefly in the top spot. Musk isn't alone in seeing a significant increase in wealth during a year of pandemic, recession, and death. Altogether, the world's billionaires saw their wealth surge over 1.9 trillion in 2020, according to Forbes magazine. Those are astronomical numbers, and it's hard to get one's head around them without some context. An anthropologist who studies energy and consumer culture, we want to examine how all that wealth translated into consumption and the resulting carbon footprint. And then they kind of go with how they use this almost like an equation and all these other things that they do in their lifestyle that would make their carbon footprint bigger. And it says the wealthy own yachts, planes, and multiple mansions, all of which contribute greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. For example, a super yacht with a permanent crew, helicopter pad, submarines, and pools emits about 7,200 tons of CO2 a year. According to our calculations, making it by far worst asset to own from an environmental standpoint. Transporting and real estate make up the lion's share of most people's carbon footprint, so we focused on calculating those categories for each billionaire. And so they talk about all the different ways that they do this math. It says, to get a sense of perspective, let's start with the carbon footprint of a regular person. So someone like us. Residents of the U.S., including billionaires, emitted about 15 tons of CO2 per person in 2018. The global average footprint is smaller at just about 5 tons per person. So let's say somewhere in the middle, because the average American is going to, have a larger carbon footprint than other places, third world countries and everything. And so let's say around 10. Let's say 10 tons per person. So let's talk about these billionaires and what their footprint might be. Bill Gates, currently the world's fourth richest person, is a modest polluter by billionaire standards and is typical to those who may not own a giant yacht but make up for it with private jets. So his main thing is private jets, and he has a lot of homes. I did not know he has that many homes. In the 90s, Bill Gates built Xanadu, named after the vast fictional estate in Orson Welles' Citizen Kane, at a cost of $127 million in Medina, Washington. The giant home covers 6,131 square meters with a 23-car garage, a 20-person cinema, and 24 bathrooms. He also owns at least 5 other dwellings in Southern California and San Juan Islands in Washington State, North Salem, New York, and New York City, as well as a horse farm, 4 private jets, a seaplane, and a collection of helicopters. We estimate that his annual footprint at 7,493 metric tons of carbon. Okay, so the average person was 10. Bill Gates, who, actually puts an effort into not being the worst person in the world, has a footprint of 7,493. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean it's all its own weird thing. They are dealing with things that I cannot possibly understand.
It's just a crazy thing, because I was thinking about both ends of it, like how much good they could do and how much bad they just do for living. And it was funny because we were talking about Amazon this week, and Bezos is the guy that came up with Prime and all these other things and made Amazon what it is. And I just thought it was an interesting discussion and something to think about. So let's make a pact right now, Zach, that if we ever become billionaires, we will try to end world hunger because we would have enough money.
Done.
Got it. You can quote us on that, guys. When we become billionaires, we'll end world hunger.
Yeah, done.
I discovered something that I think is it's just a fun discovery. I found this article from Huffington Post that's about how they've taught pigs. Well, they did a study, and the study found that pigs can be trained to play video games with their snouts. And it's great. And by the way, there's like a video that accompanies it, and these pigs are so cute because they're like the little ones. So freaking cute. I'll give you some of the names of the pigs. So there's one of the names pigs. One of the pigs' name was Hamlet, Omelet, Ebony, and Ivory. Those were the 4 pigs that were in this test. In the article, pigs are highly intelligent creatures, and a study released on Tuesday has revealed that they're skilled gamers as well. These pigs were trained at a rudimentary joystick-operated video game task that had originally been created to test chimpanzees and rhesus monkeys. They learned how to manipulate a joystick with their snouts to move a computer cursor across a screen. Once they maneuvered the cursor to hit a wall, a treat dispenser connected to the joystick would deliver a snack. It almost seems like it was more like a maze because there was different numbers of walls, and it would actually get harder. Like it would be like, you beat this level, now go to the next level. It's a little bit harder, which I thought was even cooler. It says the game had varying difficulty levels, and the number of walls that appeared on screen decreased from 4 to 1. So it wasn't like really as much of a maze as like they just had to move the cursor to hit a wall. But there's less walls to hit as it got more difficult. The pigs, all of whom were farsighted, eventually excelled at the game, though their performance varied at the higher difficulty levels.
Wait, are pigs farsighted?
Apparently they are, because they talked about how like even though they had issues, even like seeing the screen, they were still able to figure it out. There's a quote in here that says, that the pigs achieved the level of success they did on a task that was significantly outside of their normal frame of reference in itself is remarkable and indicative indicative of their I got it. There we go. Indicative of their behavioral and cognitive flexibility, the study states, pointing out that even when the joystick broke, the hogs continued to make correct responses when rewarded only with verbal and tactile reinforcement from their experimenters who are also their primary caretakers. They have some pictures of the pigs and stuff like that. It says this sort of study is important because, as with any sentient beings, how we interact with pigs and what we do to them impacts and matters to them. Crony says, we therefore have an ethical obligation to understand how pigs acquire information and what they are capable of learning and remembering, because it ultimately has implications for how they perceive their interactions with us and their environments. I feel like they're saying we shouldn't eat bacon in that quote, but I'm still going to eat bacon.
I mean, the more you learn about how pigs are, it's going to make it tougher and tougher for you because they are very smart.
They are very smart. Speaking of which, I was listening to a podcast that was talking about vaccines, like making new vaccines, and they were at a place where they were testing vaccines on pigs it was for flu, but it was preventing pig flu first, and then we're going to try to go to humans. But it was funny because they had to put earplugs in when they were drawing the blood of the pigs because they would squeal really loud. And pigs are so smart that the first pig is always the most calm because all the other pigs hear him and they just get more and more anxious until like the last pig is just like a frenzy of like going nuts. It's hard to catch him and he's squealing unstoppable because they're so smart that they realize something bad's about to happen to me.
This keeps happening. Bad things keep happening everywhere.
It's like the cartoon when you like a kid goes to the dentist and they hear other kids like screaming and crying and they just get scared.
Yeah, that is 100% what it's like. But yeah, I discovered, and it was actually something we were just talking about on the back porch. Did you ever do the floating arm trick?
I don't think so.
For anybody who hasn't done this before, it's very easy to try this out. What you do is you stand in a doorway, or a hallway. You just need something on both sides of you, like symmetrically. And you stand there, you look straight ahead into the room, you lift both arms like out to your side until the backs of your hands are pressed against the door frame. And then essentially you can do you'll figure out a place where you can do this. But as soon as you hit both of the back of your hands and are pressing it against the doorway, you stay there for a minute. So you count slowly to 60. And then when you stop pushing, like you stop at the end and step through the doorway and then relax, and your arms will subconsciously just go up. And this is just this weird response, because I remembered this happening in school.
I think I do remember doing that.
This was something that was like
a science class or something even?
I think so, because it's essentially tricking your brain, because your brain, it's very good. It's kind of like olfactory burnout in the sense where if it's doing something constantly, it gets used to it. So then when you stop, it's still kind of running on autopilot. And so you have this little moment in between. So I just wanted to throw out a little fun thing that people could try out to see science in action.
And blow Mason's mind and be like, hey, come here.
You should do that to Mason and maybe record it, because his mind is going to be blown when he does it.
Whoa, my arm's still moving.
Yeah, it should be really good.
Oh.
I have one more little bonus. I saw this trailer for a documentary on Netflix, and it's called My Octopus Teacher. And while it sounds weird, it's not, because what it is there's a guy who, I think that he was kind of going through a stressful time in his life, and he went out to the ocean and he would just go free diving, so snorkeling instead of he wasn't scuba diving or anything. And he started going to coral reefs, and he met an octopus there, and he had an interaction with it, because octopus are very, very smart animals too. Mm-hmm. They do crazy stuff. And for some reason, he decided after having that encounter with it to go back constantly. And so he went back every day for 100 days and interacted with an octopus. And so it's this really cool thing about animal intelligence, and it's obviously beautiful because they're in a coral reef and you're seeing all of this. It looks really good. I haven't watched the movie yet, but I've seen the trailer and it looks really good.
That is fascinating. I need to watch it. That sounds cool. I listened to a Radio Lab that was about octopus and scientists that would go and check the same octopus out for, it was years. It was tens of years that this same octopus at the same spot. It was just a crazy story. So I can imagine.
There's a cool movie about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It sounds awesome. Awesome. Well, all right, guys, thank you so much for listening to this week with Discovery Weekly, and we hope that you guys tune in next week. We'll talk to you then. Have a great week.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to a podcast of the Podfix Network. Discover more Audible gems like this at podfixnetwork.com. Make sure to catch up-to-the-minute network shenanigans by following @Podfix on Twitter, official_Podfix on Instagram, @Podfix Network on Facebook. And make sure to subscribe to Podfix Presents wherever you choose to find podcasts. The Podfix Network, artist owned and loved.